ప్రేమ స్వరూపులారా, విద్యార్థులారా, who am I.
Welcome to Inside Scoop, a podcast that brings you practical servings of Swami's sweetest teachings. Joining me today is the extremely entertaining Brother Prashant Menon. Hi, bro.
Saram, sister.
So we're going to start with a little game where I begin a random story and you have to continue where I've stopped and I continue where you stop and blah, blah, blah. Does that sound good?
All right. Yeah, okay. I'll try. I'll definitely try.
Okay, no pressure. So, story goes, you are on day 3 of a diet plan, but Amma says go to buy groceries and she gives you a list. You're at the store with that list, and everything's going well, but then you see a packet of sour cream and onion chips calling out to you. And it says, "Take me home, Prashant."
I say to it, I would like to take you home, but I'm already in a relationship with celery. And always remember, I always knock on the door of the fridge before I open it, because there might be a salad dressing.
So I glanced at the salad dressing and said, doesn't look spicy enough. I want my Indian curry.
And right at that point, we saw an alien coming into the place. And he said, here's some chutney. It's called alien chutney because it's green.
So random, bro. Don't you think our minds are just like this game we played? It generates this endless stream of thoughts, which are just stories that we tell ourselves about the situations we're in. And they don't really reflect reality or make sense most of the time. So everyone is living in their little world that they create for themselves based on their stories. Which brings me to my first question. What scenarios do we commonly overthink?
Well, I think most scenarios are eligible to be overthinked. I mean, you can overthink them. Obviously, right. You can, of course, go on and on about things that matter to you, things that don't matter to you. That's the beauty of overthinking. You have the license to think about anything, dude. Have you ever thought about why at one point all the Beatles had mustaches and then suddenly all of them decided not to have mustaches? I don't know another group that actually did that. Not even NSYNC, right. Although their name is Big NSYNC, so yeah. So basically you can overthink almost anything and everything. Overthinking brings about 2 elements. Of course, right. we live in the present, yeah. But we always like to think of things actions that we have done in the past. Any action. It could have been I shouldn't have eaten that cake the other day. I've been having an upset stomach for the past 3 days, or the future. I should never eat cakes anymore because right. I'm constantly overthink. If I eat cakes, then I'll do this to myself, I'll do that right. to myself, and we go into endless possibilities. You see, the minute we all feel that the future is in our hands, we always say, if you study well today, you will be successful in the future. That's a lie. That's the biggest lie any child has been told. Yeah. I studied hard. I didn't study smart, by the way. I studied hard. And here I am doing mass comm, okay? This is what life led me to, right?
I feel you, bro.
I'm not saying that there's I'm not saying that there's nothing successful about mass comm, but I'm just saying, it was a complete different route, Yeah. But what I can only imagine is that, when you're put in this situation where you are constantly in this spiral of overthinking, you tend to lock yourself in this space that you should not be in the first place, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all, dude. Because you see, you are trying to put yourself in a point where you're blaming yourself. All right, you're constantly going to be blaming yourself for things that didn't happen. You're going to be blaming yourself for things that already happened before. Right. So our past and our future, we always constantly latch onto it. We hold on to it so dearly, like it's going to matter, whereby it doesn't matter at all.
Right.
And we hold on to, they say that you have to be holding on to Swami so much. Dude, we've been holding on to these things more than we've been holding on Swami. We are
Absolutely.
constantly on, oh my God, that's my future, that's my past. Dude, come on,
Right.
are you hearing yourself? Yeah. So
Right.
you can't write the future and you can't erase the past, is all I'm saying. We forget that we're actually in the present. So
Right.
the categories are definitely the past and the future of
Right.
actions that you have done. Yeah.
Awesome. And based on the examples you were giving, it seems like the common denominator is ourselves. Our thoughts seem to be surrounded by thoughts about ourselves. We are not concerned about other people or what someone else is doing. They revolve around ourselves. So it's almost as if we're obsessed with ourselves and our ideas and our concepts and beliefs. So, in your opinion, do you think overthinking is always unproductive and unhealthy, or is it sometimes healthy?
Well, thank you so much for mentioning that. In my opinion,
Mm.
because I don't think many people would agree, but I tend to favor overthinking. I mean,
Right.
with the right practice, though, with the right practice,
Right.
then you can actually achieve productivity through overthinking.
Right.
So I think if you look at it, like even if you look at Michelangelo, such a great artist, but he had so many other things that he used to. Da Vinci. See, Da
Right.
Vinci was so well known for his artwork and how he actually. Can you imagine that Da Vinci was not well known just for his artwork? He was actually better in things that revolved around science and biology.
Right.
And art and painting was just one of the things that, hey, you know what, I can actually do that also. So can you imagine all these people were unlocked to all these possible ideas. Newton, look at Newton, he figured out the theory of gravity from supposedly just an apple falling on his head. So all these people are open to the possibilities of the world. Therefore, they're
Right.
open to overthinking,
Right.
but with proper management skills. You got to manage your thoughts.
Right.
You got to
Right.
manage what they do to you. Yeah.
So when do you think overthinking becomes unproductive?
Well, I think it's, of course, you will only understand what kind of effects overthinking has had on you at the end of the process, at the end of the road.
Right.
How do you feel? You gotta develop a self-check mechanism.
Mm.
You gotta look at yourself and say, how do I feel after this 2-hour long just staring into space, trying to figure out stuff that I've never been involved in before. Imaginary arguments, imaginary stuff. Where has it brought me? You see, I think if you look at it from a creative stance, it's definitely productive. You actually might feel better because you get different ideas from it. Instead of coming up with your with just a scenario, you maybe come up with the entire, like a full-blown story that
Right.
eventually you can translate that into screen work or anything. And but what if it's from a person who has got no artistic I'm not saying that no artistic qualities, but they don't have that motive of going artistic. So they're stuck in this room where they have just trapped themselves with endless possibilities that they feel they are responsible for, regardless not being in it yet.
Right, right. I'm so glad you brought up the point about how we are feeling at the end of the process should be the indicator as to whether overthinking that particular scenario was productive or not productive. So do you think that actually the mind can't be blamed? Because if you think about it, right, I mean, in my view, it's just doing its job, right? For example, our stomach has a function, it digests our food. Our teeth has a function, it chews our food. And while it's doing its job, we are fine. We don't get caught up in it. And so the mind is doing the same thing. Its function is to think, and so it has thoughts. But the difference is that we don't identify ourselves with our stomach or our teeth, but we are so interested in what our mind is doing. So would you say that if we could create some distance between like the thought and ourselves, it would actually be perfectly fine? Like it wouldn't cause so much tension and mental instability. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, you see, the reason why we're actually feeling like this towards the whole mind scenario is because we identify ourselves with the mind. We don't, if we're going to identify ourselves, it's coming from the mind, or else you don't have the sense of identity. The ego is completely lost, so there's no claiming who am I and whatnot.
Right.
But since the mind exists, the function of it, literally, of course, I don't know. So if the function of the mind is to generate thoughts, right? Is to generate thoughts constantly. And if the thoughts are going to cause you to become unstable, now who do you blame? Of course, you don't blame the mind, because the mind is just doing what it's meant to do.
Exactly.
But you can blame what you put in the mind.
Right.
So what you input into the mind, like I think like you can just imagine like a scenario where you trash in, trash out, and good things in, good things out. So it's like a cycle. So if we constantly indulge in positive activities or positive knowledge, or knowledge for the betterment of mankind or ourselves, that pushes ourselves towards better evolution and all that, then probably we'll have thoughts that stimulate better things, you know. But if we're constantly drenched in thoughts that actually bring you down and also make you feel upset and negative, then of course we're gonna indulge in those kind of outcomes eventually.
Fantastic. So you're saying that it's okay to have thoughts, and it might be harder to control the number of thoughts, but maybe try and control the quality of those thoughts. That could be the first step. Yes. Awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Have you so what do you think are some of the root causes of overthinking?
I think all sorts of the values, you know, Swami has said the 6 vices, you know, all these vices automatically stimulate these thoughts, you know.
Right.
Of course, not every thought is bad, you know, because we want to get to the point of no mind, therefore no thoughts and whatnot. But I think a very important root cause would be desires, the desires that we have, jealousy, ego, all these things, because we thoughts are usually, as we spoke earlier, we said thoughts attach ourselves to it. We attach ourselves to it. We are at the point of it, right? So desires are basically for ourselves. So these desires, like, you know, all these I want that, all these things create overthinking. I want a perfect relationship. You know, everyone's out there to get a perfect relationship. And we are on Instagram looking at other people's relationship and trying to photocopy that to make it our relationship. Although it doesn't work that way. You know, and so these desires stimulated from what's outside. So therefore, what we expose our senses to, you know, what we expose ourselves to. So like what we see on Instagram, you know, social media, we're exposing ourselves to an endless realm of desires right there. You know, it's right in your face. You know, this football club dropped a new jersey, so oh my god, I want to get that. You know, all these different things. You're attracted to the desires outside. Therefore, you're exposing yourselves to it. And these are really 2 main causes of overthinking, excessive overthinking.
Amazing. You've really hit the nail on the head, because, you know, when I think about it, because you talked about relationships, I've grown up watching Bollywood movies and romantic comedies. And so it creates this expectation that of what I desire in relationships. So, you know, the guy that I'm with must whisk me away like Shah Rukh Khan did, you know, all these expectations, desires created by what I exposed my senses to. So, and that's how we begin to overthink, oh, is my relationship living up to what I've seen, what I've in Bollywood? So amazing. Thank you so much for highlighting that, desires and senses being the root causes of overthinking. Awesome. Have you ever experienced or gone through a phase in your life where you were overthinking a lot because something happened, and how did you come out of it? If you can share that experience and how you overcame it, that would be great for our listeners and for me.
All right. Okay, I would give something that happened not so recently, but pretty recently, because it left a huge, not a scar, but a huge impact on my life. So I'm just going back to the thoughts where I had at that point. You know, I just had a breakup. All right, I was at the receiving end of the breakup. All right, so it was someone saying no to me. So it was like after a long time, and you know, in that space of my head, what was I thinking? Well, I was constantly telling myself that, and this was a long period, by the way. This was like, I think from let's say September till all the way till January All right.
Right.
That December I went to Parthi somewhere. December I went for
Aiyo.
the Yuvan Yatra. So that was recovery for me.
Right.
But when it started in September, I was constantly put in the spiral of thoughts telling me that I did something wrong. So therefore I don't deserve a good relationship or love or in any aspect good things to happen to me. I was
Right.
constantly put in this room where I've been telling myself that it's your fault. You are not deserving. You did it. She was a nice person or whatever. I was belittling myself. I
Right.
was making myself feel unworthy, and all these things only resulted in more negativity. And all
Right.
this negativity, sooner or later, from the mind, it shows to the body. You can
Right.
see in your face. You won't look like a happy, joyful person. And I'm a happy guy. All right.
I
So
can tell. Yeah.
yeah. So people and yeah, I wasn't even able to fake it. And it was that bad. So how I got out of it was, I think, of course, it's God sent. Swami definitely helped me out, because the first person I went to was my mom. I'm very open to my mom, so I share everything with her, even when I was in a relationship and when I was going through that phase where I had that breakup or whatever they call it. So I shared it with my mom, and as I told earlier, you have that person to constantly give you positive affirmations, positive words to lift you up, because you've been putting yourself down, dude. You've been putting yourself down. So you're getting someone to lift you up. Of course, it's not going to be that great, because you got to pick yourself up at the end of the day, but at least there's someone trying, someone who cares for you, someone who loves you. So you got to have that person next to you.
Right.
So I had my mom, and I had a couple of really good friends that actually cared for me, who would come and take me out and, hey, macha, tell me, macha, how's things,
Right.
tell, don't worry, macha, very, very calm.
Right.
They try to get you out of that space that you have put yourself in.
Right.
And of course, and also it helps for injecting positivity into your thoughts, your
Right.
senses.
Right.
So at that
Right.
point, reading very positive books. Like a friend of mine, she gave me a book that was entitled Dying to Be Me, where I got so many messages from that book. And one of the messages that stayed with me till today is trust the timing of your life. Therefore everything happens at that moment. Therefore trust that timing of your life. And future, you can, and it also made me realize that the future, I don't have control over it. So anything could happen there. So it made me feel a little bit more less burdened. And of course, another helpful thing was I joined this what was this? It was like the parent care, but now it's
Living
else.
skills.
What do they call it? Living skills. How can I forget that? So living skills. I joined living skills, and that also was a really good support mechanism, because you join every month, and you have this this group of people that are just sharing positivity to you,
Right.
be it through words or just a smile. At that point, when you're overthinking like that, just having someone to smiling at you itself makes you feel much calmer. So through all this, it helped me grasp and pull myself out to make me feel a bit more motivated. And of course, the most important thing when you're already that down is self-confidence. So when you input more positivity into your thoughts help build your self-confidence. So you become more confident, and you come out of it stronger. So that's the best way that I would recommend, and that's how I did it. Actually, I came out of it. So yeah.
Fantastic. That's a wonderful example. So basically you changed your self-talk by exposing your senses to positive things, whether it was through the company that you were keeping, or through the books you were reading, or the media you were consuming. You just wanted to change that self-dialogue to an uplifting one, right? Fantastic.
Yeah.
And okay, people often say another way to stop overthinking, because if your example was like a one-off scenario where you went through a breakup, sometimes some people grapple with overthinking on a daily basis. It's just part and parcel of their personality or their life. And people will recommend meditation, but honestly, I personally find meditation so difficult as a tool to help you calm the mind down. Do you have any other tips on how we can just quieten the mind? Like not even having good thoughts, but just having less thoughts. I know this is a difficult one. So any ideas?
I think the only way you can actually quieten the mind is by performing actions on the spot.
Right.
So you don't have room for you to create more thoughts about what you're going to do or what you just did. You're doing things just because you thought about it and you're doing it right away. So therefore it's like a balance check. It's like a balance check whereby it cancels out each other.
Right.
So it's like, so the more and more you live in the present by performing actions on the spot.
Right.
So if you perform actions on the spot, basically you're living in the present. You're getting there. You're
Right.
getting there. None of us are there yet.
Yeah.
None of us
Yeah.
dude. Because people always say, why don't
Yeah.
you just meditate, live in the present, dude?
Yeah.
The present, the moment. They say live in the moment. The
Yeah.
moment is mediocre at best.
Yeah,
Right, so-
absolutely.
It's nothing that great, but
Yeah.
it helps, of course, by doing things in the moment. So
Right.
you perform things in the moment, you carry out your duties in the moment. Swami always very particular about starting on time. And everything is about time. Swami always says, even look at bhajans in Bharti. They start at that time and they finish on the dot.
Yeah.
Not even a chorus line goes further than that dot. They
Mm.
just translate right into the arati and they're done. And I'm
Right.
always astonished. I'm like, wow, the discipline. So discipline is very important to bring that mind down. Yeah, so it's more about self-discipline. The more we cultivate self-discipline, the more we will be able to live in the moment. And when we're living in the moment, basically we do not have thoughts that are going out of our circumference, just in that bubble. Therefore, we are able to manage it more and better. So that would be a really good way to control your thoughts, control the amount of thoughts you have, and not succumb to actually excessive overthinking.
Great point, bro. You've echoed what Swami has said as well, in that if we want to control the mind, we need to be completely absorbed in activities that require our concentration. And I think why this works is because, say we have a positive or negative experience, okay? We can call these the facts of the scenario. For example, getting a job rejection. Then there is a thought in response to that experience. And let's call these the stories that we tell ourselves. For example, I'm such a failure, I'm falling behind, or I'm not good enough. And then there is another part of us that is watching this thought, like we can actually see this thought come. So let's call this the awareness. If we can refrain from engaging with these stories and just sticking to the facts of the situation, we won't feel as mentally drained and as emotionally exhausted. Because yes, I got a job rejection, end of story. It just ends there. It won't be able to affect us as much.
Yeah.
So I love how you've given us a practical way to stick to the facts, the objective experience, rather than the stories and the thoughts we tell ourselves. Thank you so much, bro, for such practical insights on how we can manage our thoughts. Dear listeners, it's now time for some prasadam pills for you to pop whenever you struggle with overthinking. 1. Overthinking is not always unproductive. It can lead to wonderful epiphanies, but how we feel will indicate if this process has been constructive. 2. The primary cause of our mental exhaustion is not the situation, but our thoughts about it. If we can remind ourselves that these thoughts are just stories and focus on the objective facts of the situation, these thoughts will have little power over us. 3. It is our identification to our thoughts, not the thoughts themselves, that creates tension. If we can practice watching our thoughts like passing clouds instead of judging them, we can find great mental freedom. 4. Uncontrolled desires and overindulging our senses are the root causes of overthinking. So if we can put a ceiling on those desires and consume more positive input, we can shift the quality of our thoughts. 5. Reducing our thoughts takes a whole lot of self-discipline and a commitment to staying present. We can develop this habit by being actively absorbed in useful activities. Next on Inside Scoop, we explore who the inner voice is and how we can hear it. Until next Friday, happy scooping!